Hi, my name is Seisha and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my July wrap-up for 2021, July of 2021. I hope you can hear me. I don't really feel like yelling. So in July, this is the first, into my garbage back there. July was the first month that I have read quite a bit since like January. So that's why this is the first wrap-up you've seen probably since January. I read 6 books in July, and I finished 1 book, and I'm just gonna go through, I'm just gonna go through that. I'm wearing the same sweater that I wore in the last video. I filmed the last video yesterday, and I just put the sweater back on today, so that's why. I was gonna change, but I didn't feel like doing that. So let's just get into the video. I used the Compile rating system. I'll leave the link to the original creator's video about the Compile rating system. And there's like a spreadsheet, and it gives you a lot of like different reading stats. I'll tell you what my Compile ratings are for each book, and that's kind of it. Just for a quick like recap, okay, Compile is a rating system that helps you like more consistently rate the books that you read. And so you rate a bunch of categories on a scale of 1 to 10, and then the average from the ratings of those categories gives you the overall 5-star rating for your book. So the categories are characters, atmosphere, writing, plot, intrigue, logic, and enjoyment. So you give each of those rating out of 10, and you find the average, and this spreadsheet does it all for you. It's like my favorite thing. So I'm going to tell you what my Compile rating was for each of those and what I ended up entering on Goodreads. So the first book that I read in July, I actually didn't read in July, and that is A Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir. This is the second book in the An Ember in the Ashes series. I had read the first book the month prior. And I read most of this in June. I read most of it in June. I think I probably read like the last 25, maybe the last half in July, but I thought I'd count it. I didn't count it as being read in July on Compile, but I'm counting it in this video. So, An Ember in the Ashes has become one of my favorite series. Now that I read the second book, I can officially say that. This book I liked a little bit less than the first book. For reference, I gave An Ember in the Ashes 10 out of 10, like exactly, like 100%. And this book I gave 10 in everything except for enjoyment, which I gave a 9. This is a 5-star read for me. I won't talk too much about the plot of this book because it's a sequel, but this is, as I said, the sequel to An Ember in the Ashes, and that book is a YA fantasy that takes place, I think it's supposed to be inspired by ancient Rome. I could be wrong, but it follows Leia, who is a scholar. That's like her race, I guess. And the scholars have kind of been annexed, I guess, or like taken over by I think they're called the Illustrians or the Marshals. Anyways, they're like been taken over by a different race. And they live now the scholars live in poverty. They're sold into slavery all the time. That's like those like sugar-coated way I could put it. But yeah, they live a hard life. And when Leia's brother gets kidnapped, gets sent to prison, she becomes a spy. She becomes a spy for the rebellion, the Scholar Rebellion. And she ends up at the military academy where she meets Elias. I'm gonna call him Elias because I knew someone in middle school and elementary school named Elias, so I'm gonna call him Elias because that's what I called him in my head because I didn't want to I didn't want the two to like be similar in my head, so I'm calling him Elias. If you pronounce it Elias, that's obviously okay too. I don't know what the real pronunciation is. Off topic. Anyways, she meets Elias, and he is like the big kahuna at the military academy, but the plot twist is that he hates being part of the military. He's planning to leave. Yeah, and then they meet and they just help each other. That's kind of the plot of the first book. There's so much more. There's like a war, and there's a lot of political intrigue. And this is the second book that just continues where the first book left off. So yeah, this is another one. This is a favorite. Whoa, this is such a good book. I totally recommend this series. It's super fast paced. One of my favorites for sure. The next book I read, I actually read this completely in July, and that is Monstrous by Marjorie Louis and Sana Takeda. This is a graphic novel with literally the most stunning artwork. That's why I bought it, because it's so stunning. Unfortunately, that's kind of the highest point for me is the artwork. This is actually my lowest rated book of the whole year. This is my only 2-star I've given out this whole year. So into my compile rating, I gave it a 4 for characters, a 9 for atmosphere, because I think that for this book, the atmosphere would be the artwork, and that, so 9 for atmosphere, 6 for writing, because I also was like, is the art style the writing, so I gave it a 6, a 4 for plot, 3 for intrigue, 2 for logic, and 3 for enjoyment, and its overall like star rating was a 2, but I ended up giving it, I think, a 3-star on Goodreads, because I didn't think it's fair to give it a 2-star, because my major problem with this is I just had no idea what was going on. Like, I was reading it and I was like, what? No plot, just vibes for me. I'm sure that if I were to reread it, which I probably will, it's a quick read because it's a graphic novel, I'm hoping that if I read it again in a different headspace, I would, like, comprehend more of what was going on. I had no idea. This is a fantasy. There's magic and monsters, and it's kind of like steampunk. That's there's like gods maybe, I don't know, I had no idea what was going on. And this, what was I gonna say? Yeah, I really had no idea what was going on. I actually was planning on DNFing this. I was like halfway through and I was like, I really don't want to read this, which is why I got like what, a 2 for that's why I gave it a 3 for enjoyment. Like, I wasn't having a good time, but I was like, it's so short, I have to finish it. That's why I ended up finishing it. So yeah, I'm really sad I didn't like it because they're just so gorgeous. Like, I would love to like own all of them, but I'm not gonna buy any more. Maybe I'll reread it and I love it. We'll see. The next book I read in July was Lovely War by Julie Berry. As you can see, I annotated this book. Let me get into let's talk about what this book is about. This is a YA historical fiction, and it's told from the perspective of Aphrodite, so the gods exist in this world, and it's about 4 characters that are all somehow involved in World War One, and it's a love story, but it's like sad. There's a lot, so that was a horrible explanation. But it's about like 2 couples, and it touches on some topics. I know this book received some backlash for its use of slurs. There's a black main character, and it takes place in World War One. But I don't know, it didn't bother me that much, or at all, really. I mean, it bothered me a tiny bit, but not enough for me to like, I read the at the end of the book, the author has like this like historical piece where she talks about the research she did, and she talks a lot about like black soldiers in World War One. So I can tell it wasn't just like, oh, let me use a slur. It was like there was a reason for it to be used, I suppose. If that made you uncomfortable, that's completely valid. Like, that's so valid. If you to take down stars for this white author using a slur, that's fine. It just didn't bother me that much in this context. I ended up giving it 4 stars. So my compile rating, I gave it a 9 for characters, an 8 for atmosphere, 9 for writing, 9 for plot, 8 for intrigue, 9 for logic, and 9 for enjoyment. Now this is a super fast read. I don't know if you can tell, but like a lot of the chapters aren't even like full chapters, so if you're in a reading slump, I totally recommend this. And it's like very like easy to read. And there are a lot of like, I really liked like the themes it had about like this question of like, why does war love? Why does war love? That's like one of the questions it poses, and it's like, what role does music and love and art like play in war? And then they use like the Greek gods to kind of hit that point home, and I really liked it. I don't know. Yeah, so overall I give it 4 stars. I'm out of breath. I know I haven't talked this much in so long. Like, my phone's at 2%, and if you've seen my last video, you know that I'm using my phone to show pictures for any books that I read in ebook format. I had explained why in that video, but I edited it out because it was just so rambly and so irrelevant. The next book that I read in July was Before You Say I Do by Claire Lydon. This is just a book that I saw was available on Libby, so I borrowed it. It is a contemporary romance, and it's sapphic, and it's about a soon-to-be bride and this woman whose career is to be a step-in bridesmaid or maid of honor or whatever. I don't know. And I was like, oh my god, a fun adult romance, and I was reading it, and I was so it was fast. It was super fast paced, but I just wasn't enjoying it, so I ended up DNFing it really early on, maybe 15 or 20% through. So I'll tell you my Cloudpile rating for it, but take it with a grain of salt, seeing as I didn't finish it. I gave it a 5 for everything except for characters and logic, which I gave a 4. So as you can see, I didn't really like it. If I had finished it, the rating would have been probably a 2.5 star, but I didn't finish it, so I didn't rate it on Goodreads. The next book I read, I also read in ebook format, is what I was trying to say. I feel like I'm talking down. Let me say that again, because I did it again. I've been talking, I'm looking at my phone, so I'm not talking to the camera. Anyways, the next book that I read, I also read on my, 1 second. There we go. The next book that I read, I also read on my iPad in ebook format, and that is The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. This is an adult contemporary romance, again, about, it's an enemies to lovers. No, it's a workplace enemies to lovers, very similar to The Hating Game in terms of premise, and I love The Hating Game. But the kind of not the twist, but the difference is that in this book, the main female character, she has to go to a wedding, so it's fake dating. Oh yeah, and it's fake dating. It's fake dating, and the main love interest is her date to the wedding. I don't love fake dating that much, so that was kind of one of my drawbacks, but I really enjoyed it. I had it on my favorites bookshelf on Goodreads. I ended up taking it off, and I'll talk about why I took it off later, but let me get into my Cloudpile rating for this book. So I gave it an 8 for characters, an 8 for atmosphere, a 9 for writing, and a 9 for plot, an 8 for intrigue, a 9 for logic, and an 8 for enjoyment. In hindsight, they probably didn't actually rate that high, but that's just, I'm not going to change it. So yeah, overall I gave it a 4 star. The Spanish Love Deception, I thought it was super fun. I had a great time reading it, but it kind of fell into this trap where not trap, but in the last, okay, so one of the things that I loved about the book was all of the witty back and forth banter between the two main characters, because it's an enemies to lovers type romance, as I said earlier. But once they get into a relationship, and that's kind of a spoiler, but also not, it's a romance, obviously they're gonna get into a relationship, but once they got into a relationship, all the witty banter stopped, so the last, at the end of the book, I didn't really care about it that much, and I kind of started realizing towards the end that, the characters didn't have that much depth, especially the main love character, the main male character. I don't remember what his name is, but, and I know that's kind of a common thing in tropes where men are just kind of eh, you know? But I really started to notice it near the end where I'm this guy has no personality. His personality is being perfect, you know? So I wasn't really a fan of that. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that book. The next book that I read, oh my god, my phone's at 1%. I could just charge it, my thing's right there, but it unplugged from the wall. Okay, the next book that I read was Binti by Inedi Okorafor. This is a novella, a sci-fi novella about this girl named Binti who was going to space. And it's kind of a tale about acceptance, about culture and acceptance, And it was good. It was fun. I ended up giving it, let's relook at my cop house. I gave it 9 for characters, 10 for atmosphere, 9 for writing, 8 for plot, 9 for intrigue, 8 for logic, and 10 for enjoyment. It was fun. It was fast. I know it wasn't like, the resolution of the book was kind of like cheesy, but I liked it, and I think it was deserving of 5 stars, so I gave it 5 stars. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about Binti. It was good. It was fun. If you want like a quick read, it's only 96 pages on my iPad, so super fast. Yeah, I recommend it. The next book that I read was actually a reread, which is big for me. I don't really reread my books, but it was Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. Not gonna say it again. Yeah, so this is a really popular book on BookTube, Book Twitter. Actually, I don't know if it's popular on Book Twitter, but also popular on BookTube, where it was. And it is about a witch and a witch hunter. So it's like star-crossed enemies to lovers, you know? And they have to force to enter a marriage of convenience. And there's so much more to that book, but the third book came out on the 27th of July, and I pre-ordered it, and I have it. And I was like, oh, should I reread the first 2 books? And so when I first started reading it, I was like, it's not really, it's already not, like, living up to, like, how I remembered it when I read it, like, when it first came out. But by the end of it, I was like, I'm in love. I want to read it again. It's still one of my favorite books. I gave it a 9 for characters, 9 for atmosphere, 9 for writing, 10 for plot, 10 for intrigue, 9 for logic, and 10 for enjoyment. And I gave it a 5 on Goodreads. It's still on my favorites shelf. It's just, I know there are a lot of problems with this book, and I can admit that. If you want me to go over the problems with it, I can. Not tonight now, but I still loved it. Lots of like problematic things, I don't know. And I love this book. It's one of my favorites still. I'm going to read book 2 this month. If you've seen my August TBR, which I think will probably be up before this. I don't know, who knows. If you've seen my August TBR, you know that I'm reading book 2. I'm rereading book 2 in August, and then maybe book 3 in August as well. But yeah, I love this book so much. I'm still thinking about it. I'm so scared to read book 3 because I just feel like I'm gonna cry, and I don't cry when I read, like, even when things are sad. I'm not a very sentimental person, but I feel like I'm gonna cry because it's gonna be over, and I don't know. What else? I think that the pacing for this book is just so good. It's super fast paced. This is one I would recommend if you're in a reading slump as well. I just love the development of the relationship. I love all of the side characters. I love the magic system. And once you get into the second book, like the overarching, I had this problem in my TBR too. I don't know if it's overarching or overarching. Either way, the bigger plot of like the war between witches and witch hunters. I love it so much. So I recommend this. I don't know. Okay, the last book that I read in July was Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. 5 stars. It's another one of my new favorite books. Yes, I gave it 5 stars. Oh my gosh, it was so good. Get a Life, Chloe Brown is the first in the Brown Sisters trilogy, and each book follows one of 3 sisters. The first one being Chloe Brown. And Chloe is kind of mean. She's like grumpy. I don't know. It's like the grumpy sunshine dynamic. With Chloe being grumpy and her love interest Red being kind of sunshine, I guess. That's how I interpreted it. I don't know. Yeah, so it's an adult contemporary romance. And it's just perfect. Yeah, it's just perfect. I don't know. I was halfway through Get a Life, Chloe Brown, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like, I love it so much. And that's why I took The Spanish Love Deception off my favorites list, because I was like, compared to this, like, I'm very selective with what I consider a favorite. And then I was like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not trying to, like, I know I just said I'm comparing them, but, like, they're very, Get a Life, Chloe Brown, and The Spanish Love Deception are very different. So, don't think that I'm saying, oh, like, this one's bad, it's nothing compared to Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I just think that, for me personally, I liked one better, way more, and it made me like the other one less. And my friend who read this book, who read Get a Life, Chloe Brown, said that she had it on her favorites list. Then she read the other 2 books in the series, and then she took it off her favorites list because the other 2 were just better. So I'm really excited to continue with the series. I'm not the biggest contemporary fan in general, so I'm surprised I loved it that much. Into my compile ratings, I gave it a 10 for characters. My Red is the best book boyfriend. Oh, did I tell you the plot of the book? Enemies to lovers. He's the superintendent. He's the super in Chloe's building. Enemies to lovers. I don't know what else to say. I don't really remember. But yeah, 10 for characters, 8 for atmosphere, 10 for writing. It was super fast paced. I love her writing. 9 for plot, 9 for intrigue, 9 for logic, and 10 for enjoyment. I was like so giddy the whole time I was reading it. The next book in the series is Take a Hint, Dani Brown, which once again, if you saw my August TBR, I'm planning to read that this month. I'm a little worried because I'm not, like I said, I'm not the biggest fake dating fan. I know that this is like technically fake dating, but let's pretend that's not the case. In general, I'm not the biggest fan of fake dating. So I'm a little bit worried about that I'm not gonna like book 2, Take a Hint, Dani Brown, as much as I liked Get a Life, Chloe Brown. But like I said, I love Talia Hibbert's writing so much, and I love the way she like makes characters. So I think I'm gonna like it anyways. I have high hopes for Take a Hint, Dani Brown, and yeah, I gave it 5 stars. So although I had as I said, my lowest and only 2-star of the book of the year, I had a lot of good books this month too. Like I had 3 5 stars and 2 favorites. Oh, I forgot to say, I put this book on my favorites. So let me take a second to discuss my favorites, like bookshelf on Goodreads. So it's a lot of fantasy because I tend to like fantasy more than I like other genres. And when I put fantasy on it, I kind of like classify it as books that I think about all the time because I tend to think about books a lot. So, you know, I have a very active imagination. So books that when I'm like doing with my little like, and when I'm like daydreaming, like I tend to be about fantasy books. So that's kind of what helps me. That's kind of how I decide what's on my favorites list in terms of fantasy and sci-fi. In terms of romance, it was just books that like made me really happy the whole time I read it. And then like other genres like contemporary historical, like hard-hitting contemporary historical fiction are just books that like I think are like good. So this book, even though I gave it 4 stars, it's on my favorites list. I think that it's a really great book, and I had such a good time annotating it. But yeah, this is a good reading month overall, and I'm very happy because I haven't been reading. But it's August 3rd, and I've already finished a book. I haven't started one yet. I don't know which one to read. I mean, I haven't started a book since I finished my last one. I don't know what I'm gonna read. I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of it. I'm hoping that as I film more videos, I'll stop being as rambly. I hate editing so much. I think I did a good job of rambling less this video though, so hopefully it'll be easier to edit. I've already started editing my TBR, so that's irrelevant. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video, which I will definitely be making. Bye.